My name is Gracie and today we are doing my 2020 favorites. I have 5 books that I've chosen that I'm going to talk about because I read 43 books in 2020, which is pretty low for me, and I was a little disappointed, but my goal is a lot higher for 2021. And I think just some people I know read a lot more in 2020 with like quarantine, but it was really hard for me to read for some reason, and I spent more time on like video games or on YouTube and different stuff like that. So I only have 5 to share, but it'll still be fun. Yeah. So I'm gonna go from like least favorite to favorite, even though they're all favorites, if that makes sense. I picked one of the books that I gave 4.75 stars because I really loved it, and it was like very close to being perfect. That is Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the sequel to Strange the Dreamer. Strange the Dreamer follows Laszlo Strange, and he is obsessed with the lost city of Weep, and he actually gets a chance to go there. It is not so lost anymore, and adventures ensue. There are magical, like half human, half god creatures in the sky, and there is a lot of tension between the humans and these other creatures, types of people. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book. I believe I got it for Christmas either last year or the year before. I can't remember exactly, but I think last year. I think I read this in, I want to say July. Could be wrong. I gave this 4.75 stars. I thought that it did a really good job like wrapping up the series or the duology, but also giving it like a little bit of an open ending. And I don't know if there's supposed to be more. I was always told it was a duology, but it kind of left it almost a little bit open to the fact that there could be more. So we'll see. But I'm totally okay if this is the last one, because it really just was so good in my opinion. I think Laini Taylor's writing is so much fun. It's beautiful and flowery, yet it doesn't give you like the sense of boredom that like classics that have that flowery writing do, or like, I don't know, I just really love it. It's probably one of my favorite like fantasy series ever. My 4th favorite, I give a full 5 stars. The rest of them I did give a full 5 stars, and that is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I read this in November. I actually listened to this mostly, I actually listened to the audiobook for most of this book, and Elizabeth Acevedo narrates this book herself, and I really love that. I think that she does an amazing job with it because it is her story and she knows how it wants to sound and she wants it to come across. This book is about Imani, who is a teen parent, and her life trying to juggle school, her daughter, her relationships, her daughter's father, and her the strain on their relationship and how that is working for them, and custody and stuff, and her love of cooking and wanting to be a chef, and a new boy at school, as well as her friends and her grandmother as well, who she lives with. There's just a lot going on in this book, but it's also very simplistic. I felt that it just was easy to understand, yet it had some deeper meaning at the same time. It wasn't trying to be like profound, it just was real. And I just loved the characters in this book. I felt that they were very realistic for teenagers, and I think that YA writers in general are getting better at this and having more realistic characters. I really love this book. I think it handles a lot of deep topics and heavy topics, but at the same time it's light and fun, and I think the balance of those things is what drew me to it and made me love it so much. The 3rd favorite book that I have for this year is actually the last book I read in 2020, and it comes out on January 12th of 2021, so I read it as an arc. And that is Every Single Lie by Rachel Vincent. This book was like, I don't know how to even explain it to you. It is a hard-hitting YA contemporary. I was crying, I was laughing, like there were a lot of emotions that went through my experience reading this book, and I absolutely love it. Full 5 stars, like I said. I hope it gets more hype and that more people see this book and see the promotions for this book, because it really is so good and it does deserve to be like bought and cherished. One thing I will say before I even start talking about the book is that there are definitely trigger warnings that I would be aware of. I am not the best person to give you all of them, and I would definitely look them up, but one of them specifically is the death of an infant and stillborn infants. So I would definitely look into that if you feel that is something that you need. So now getting into the synopsis, Beckett, the main character, finds a baby in the locker room of her high school, and unfortunately the baby is deceased, and she goes through a lot of like bullying because people think that she was the mother and that she killed this baby or murdered this baby. Her mom is the lead detective, and so a lot of people think that her mom's covering things up. She gets like completely cyberbullied, and there's this whole thriller mystery aspect of it. Not really thriller, more suspense mystery aspect of it. I'm trying to figure out whose baby this really is. I'm trying to identify this baby, and I loved the writing. It was kind of similar to With the Fire on High. It wasn't too crazy or too like complex, but it really packed a punch and it felt realistic. The characters were amazing. I loved the relationships they had with each other and the realism and the aspects of like sex and relationships and in high school, and I think a lot of YA really shies away from that, but this one didn't. It made it very normalized, and I think that it definitely is a thing that happens. I loved the family dynamic as well. Beckett and her sister and brother were like so wholesome, yet they also had fights and had arguments and things that I really appreciated as someone with a younger sibling. There also would be trigger warnings for the death of a parent by overdose, specifically on pain medication, I believe. And so while this is all happening, they're also still grieving their father, who recently did pass away from an overdose and had really bad PTSD from being in the military. So there's lots of layers to this story, yet it still, like I said, has that simple writing that I just really love. So I highly recommend that you guys go out and buy this book when it is January 12th, when it comes out, because I loved it. It is so good. The reveal was like not too hard to understand and it made sense, yet it also wasn't obvious in my opinion from the beginning. It was a surprise. So check it out. I really recommend it. Yeah. My second favorite book was The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. I read this book in July as well, I think. This is a fantasy book about a girl and her family, and they live in a area where the dead come back to life in the form of like they call them bone houses, and they're like bone people, and they're like murderous beings. They try to attack everybody. They used to stay mostly in the forest, but they're coming to the village. The main character, Rin, along with a boy that she meets, go and try to figure out what is going on, as well as try to find Rin's father, who had disappeared and was presumed dead, but Rin seems to think that if he was dead, he did not go out to die on purpose, like the townspeople seem to believe. So it's definitely an adventure. It's action-packed, yet there are deep moments and like softer moments, and the romance is like slow burn, adorable. I love it. Oh my god. I'm not usually a huge like super high fantasy person, but it wasn't crazy. It felt believable. The magic system, it wasn't really magic. I don't know how to explain it. Like the system of weirdness that was going on was really entertaining to me. The bone houses were like creepy and like weird, and I loved it, and I highly recommend this book. And it's not hyped enough. Come on, guys. Finally, we have my top favorite book of the year, which I feel like I have talked about quite a few times. So I don't know if it'll be a surprise for someone who watches all my videos, but that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I'm obsessed with this book. I highly recommend it. Like, I think this one is, out of the 5, probably the most hyped and the most loved, and probably is somebody else's favorite book of the year from some year. I mean, I'm sure it is. I love this book so much. The characters are all so like complex and real seeming. Like, I know I keep saying that, but that is something that really makes me love a book, is if the characters feel real to me. But this book is a little bit hard to explain. There's a lot going on, a lot of characters, but basically Mia and Pearl move into Shaker Heights, and they are not the typical family of Shaker Heights. Shaker Heights is a very like posh, kind of rich family area. Like everybody's all the same and average and does similar things, and Mia and Pearl move all the time. Mia is an artist and a single mother. Pearl becomes friends with the Richardson children, and the Richardsons are very much so that stereotypical Shaker Heights family that I described, and there is a little bit of a rift, yet also just the idea of these two families looking at how each other live and the differences and some arguments and some rifts. And then there is a legal case that pops up, and both families are on 2 different sides of this legal case. This book does not sound as good as it is. I don't know. The synopsis does not give it justice. My explanation does not give it justice. It is just like, it's an exploration of class inside a fiction book, and it is done beautifully. I'm really drawn to fiction books that have those important discussions because I am not a nonfiction person really at all. And when a fiction book can pull me in with, you know, that fictional side of it, but still have those real life, hard-hitting, tough topics and discussions in it, I just am a sucker for that, and that's really why I adore this book. Also, just the writing and the characters are beautiful. Just 100. Oh, I love them. So, those are my top 5 favorite books of 2020. What were your favorite books of 2020? I'd love to know. Did you read any of these? Do you have the same opinions, different opinions? I would also love to know that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I do have a goal to post a lot more in 2021, so we'll see. So yeah, bye!